Back with me now is Laura DiMaggio, the sister of James DiMaggio, the kidnapper of Hannah Anderson. This is her first interview since her brother's death. Obviously, you have a...
Piers, can I stop you?
Yeah.
I would like to throw in there, I would like to remind you that at this point my brother is still a suspect. He is not a killer. He is accused, and again, it is alleged. So I'd just like to...
I mean, I understand that. Obviously, I have to throw back at you, and,
right.
and this is on behalf, I'm sure, everyone watching,
Understood.
to say, look, the police have been very firm in their reports from this and their public statements that they have little doubt that your brother was a double murderer, was a torturer, and was a kidnapper. So I understand why you, as his sister, seek to defend him. But I have to put it to you again that it sounds to me like you're slightly in denial.
Well, and I understand where you're coming from on that. I certainly do. How, you know, San Diego police have not, they refuse to return any of my calls. FBI refuses to return any of my calls. No one will speak to me. No one will give me any information. No one will release any of his property to me. I've largely been, left out of the loop and completely ignored through this whole process. And if there is evidence, I think that as the last remaining immediate family member of James, that I think that they could share a little bit of that with me.
Tell me about the upbringing you had with James, because it was very tormented, both with your mother and your father. What is the reality? We've heard lots of rumour and conjecture about it.
The reality is that we stuck together a lot. We did have trying times. We also had a lot of happy times together, Jim and I. We made our own life, and he took care of me a lot.
Your father, he went to prison, and it was over a strange incident involving an ex-girlfriend, where he ended up
Correct.
at the ex-girlfriend's house and then effectively seemed to kidnap her daughter.
Correct.
And for that he went to prison. He later committed suicide, and James lost his life on the anniversary of your father taking his life. Do you think that was linked in some way?
No, I think that in many ways they're very different situations. My father was on drugs, and my father was a drug addict for years, my entire life that I knew him. He was on drugs as soon as after he left the military. And we're not just talking about marijuana or something like that. He was on some very heavy drugs. My brother was not a meth addict, so I think you're talking about two totally different situations, although I do understand and can see the similarities. And
you had a sort of a pact with your brother after your parents died, that you would never leave the other one alone.
Right.
Tell me about that.
No smoking, and take care of yourself. Watch out for yourself. Don't do anything stupid. We agreed that we would stick around for each other for a really, really, really long time, as long as we possibly could, until we were old and gray, and that we would never leave each other alone, because we had already lost so much.
You must feel very alone now.
I miss him very much. Very much. He was the center of my world.
Did he ever, Laura, give any sense to you of being very damaged by what had happened in his upbringing that could possibly explain what happened? And I don't want to prejudge it. You're right that the police investigation will have to conclude, and everything else. All the evidence at the moment points towards him being guilty of heinous crimes, ones that you just can't believe your brother's capable of. But was there anything in his behavioural pattern over the years where you thought potentially one day he could crack up?
The only thing that I could say to that is that Jim was very quiet. He never spoke about our childhood, whereas I was the opposite. I was always, on every anniversary or birthday, Jim, Mom would have been, whatever age today, whatnot, and he'd say, Laura, stop living in the past, stop living in the past. He was very quiet about everything, never spoke about it. On his birthday, he'd pretty much turn off his cell phone and kind of, go work on the property or something like that. He was always just very quiet. I don't know that he ever grieved or dealt with anything that we went through as children or in his teenage years. Obviously...
Could it all have just been building up? I mean, is it a possibility?
Certainly is a possibility.
You've had to
Anything's
consider
a possibility.
that, right?
Yes, absolutely. Anything's a possibility.
That he just may have completely flipped?
It's certainly a possibility, but it's very hard to believe that someone who was just so genuine and so dependable every single solitary day just woke up one day and decided, I'm going to do this. It's very difficult to believe. Now, I also want to say that I'm not in any way excusing, I'm not saying that he didn't have any part in it. But what I'd like to know is I'd like to have factual evidence of what exactly his part in it was. And, when I have that evidence, I'll go from there.
You were pretty critical of Hannah Anderson. A lot of people on Twitter, and if you want to give me a view of this, tweet me at Piers Morgan, but a lot of people on Twitter reacting quite angrily to that, saying, you can't attack a young kid, a 16-year-old girl, who has been kidnapped by your brother, who's a man nearly 3 times her age, regardless of anything else. Mm-hmm. You can't go after a young kid like that. What is your reaction?
Well, they have a right to their own opinion, and I have a right to mine.
It's said that you were trying to get DNA evidence to explore a theory that James had a relationship with Hannah's mother, and that he may even be the father of Hannah, or indeed Ethan, or both. Is that true? And if so, why did you do that?
To this day, I have not asked the Andersons. You can ask the Anderson family. I have not asked the Andersons for any DNA.
And do you intend to?
We'll see when the time comes.
James left all his money, not to you, as he originally planned to, but to the maternal grandmother of Hannah.
Correct.
Was that a surprise to you?
No, it was not.
His argument apparently was that he believed she was best placed to take care of the kids,
right,
should something happen to their parents.
Right. And correct. I remember speaking to him about it. It was never, my children don't need it, I don't need it, and I want nothing more than, I have so much respect and love and deep, deep, deep respect in my heart for my brother that I want nothing more than for his wishes to be honored. I've heard people say that, I'm upset about that he left them $100,000. It's really, could not be further from the truth.
You've spoken to Brett, Hannah's father. That was after she was found safe. And how was that conversation between them?
It was very nice. I've always been, Brett was my brother's best friend. In a sense, they were like brothers. My brother, took on his family as his own. Bernice was, very much so a maternal role model in his life, and she helped him out when no one else would.
Did Brett believe that James had done all this? Did he tell you that?
I think he was a little surprised, but I just called him because I wanted to let him know that this was in place for him, not to worry. He certainly has enough to worry about. My deepest condolences. My heart just breaks for Brett. Really, it does.
Well, it's an awful situation for everybody involved. I appreciate you coming on, Laura. I know it's very difficult for you. You didn't really want to do this. You're perfectly entitled to have your opinion of this. It was your brother. And I hope that you find some peace from all this. We've got a statement from the from the family, from the Anderson family. No one in the Anderson family or associated with the Anderson family has received a request for DNA from Mr. Spanswick, or indeed Laura or anyone else. Brett and Tina Anderson did not meet Mr. DiMaggio until the 6th month of Tina's pregnancy with Hannah, and Brett Anderson's DNA was used to identify the body of his dead son, Ethan Anderson. It's a difficult time for both families. We wish Mr. DiMaggio privacy and peace as she begins her healing process. Laura, thank you very much.